The moving shoes. This experience didn't exactly happen to me, but I was involved in a way. My boyfriend of 2 years lives in a 159-year-old house in Utah, built by his I don't even know how many great-grandfathers in the 1800s. He lived there alone because his father remarried after his mother died, before we met in the year 2009. I usually go to his house every night after work, so we can hang out together. I don't live there with him, so sometimes I get back to my house about a mile away pretty late at nighttime. Not sure how late it was, but I was cleaning up his house a bit before I left for the night. I grabbed the sneakers that were by the front door and threw them, this is important, next to his bedroom door, so that he could put them in his room when he went to bed. I said goodnight and kissed him and left. The next morning, I got a few texts from my boyfriend. It asked, "Hey, did you put my shoes by my bedroom door?" "Yes. I threw them by the wall next to your door, why?" He went on to explain that he found them side by side facing his kitchen, which is not how I left them. I asked if he set them like that. He replied no. "My mom used to do that to our shoes." This gave me chills. I replied, "So if you didn't do it, and I didn't do it, I don't know if there is a ghost in his house, let alone the ghost of his mother, but this has happened twice now." The second time it happened was only a few days later, when my boyfriend kicked his shoes off to sit on the couch. I remember seeing them in disarray by the couch when I left that night, and in the morning, I got another text saying, "It happened again." It hasn't happened since, but I'm pretty sure his mother is just tidying up after her son. Ghost helping me? Moving shoes. This happened about 20 years ago, now probably even more. There is a big age difference between me and my older sister, almost a 12-year gap. I was only young at the time, I think I was about 6 or 7 years old, and my sister had just moved away to university. My sister used to look after me when I was young, as my mom who lived there had a full-time job at the time, and because my sister had lots of time off college for study leave, she always used to look after me during the daytime while she did coursework and revision. Now, because my sister was living away and my mom was still full-time, we had one of my mom's best friends come over. Her daughter was the same age as me, and was and still is my best friend, so she used to come over after school. Our house is nothing out of the ordinary, just an ordinary house built on a 1970s era housing estate. My sister was like my second mom, so I can always remember before she moved out, she told me not to go in her bedroom and jumble around with her stuff. One day, me and my friend was really bored, so we decided to go to my sister's room. We mucked about on her keyboard for a bit, and because her room was the biggest and had wooden floors, we messed around sliding on our knees on the floor and other bits and bobs like that. We then had a nosy in her wardrobe. I can always remember my sister always wore nice designer clothing. However, because she has moved out, the wardrobe was pretty bare, and there was only a few jackets and coats in it, and lots of empty shoe boxes. Nothing really caught our attention, but right in the corner of her wardrobe was a pair of white and blue running shoes. They were my sister's old ones. That's why she probably didn't take them with her. They were quite tatty and old and still quite dirty as well. So me and my friend took them and decided to clean them in the bathroom sink. I can remember we got mud all over the sink, and the sink was literally black. We took them outside in the garden. Our garden was quite long, but it was narrow, so we decided to race back and forth, up and down the garden, and time ourselves. We both took it in turns with the shoes. We soon got tired and bored of the whole thing. When we went back to the house, I can remember seeing my mom in the window, so I quickly threw the running shoes in a bush because I knew I would be in huge trouble for taking them out of my sister's room. I totally forgot about leaving the shoes there that day. We used to leave the back door open in the summertime, and my mom told me to go and close it and lock it up later that day or something, on the lines of that. This is where the weird stuff happened, and I can always remember this very, very clearly. My living room was opposite the staircase, and you could see pretty much all the way up the stairs as you come out of my living room. As I did so, I saw those running shoes walking up the stairs with no one in them. It was definitely a walking motion as well, not hovering, not levitating, etc., just like as if a pair of invisible legs was in them. The stairs were also wooden, so they weren't making a noise as they ascended up the stairs. I can just remember staring at them. It didn't scare me at all. I was just really amazed. As they got up to the top of the stairs, they stopped in the middle of their landing. Their backs were still facing me. They were just motionless for a short time, probably 3 to 5 seconds, when they began to shuffle a little bit. Then they turned left towards my sister's room, where I'd been playing earlier on that day. They then walked along the landing, then disappeared behind the wall and out of sight. Still no sound, though. I can always remember just looking up the stairs after what happened. It did really shock me, and my mom started shouting at me, telling me to go and lock the door. I really wanted to go to my sister's room and see if they were in there and it wasn't just me imagining stuff. But it took me about 2 or 3 days to build up the courage to do so. I can't remember to actually go back in her room to have a look. I made my friend actually come back in her room with me. There wasn't anything in the room, and my friend started calling me a liar. Then I began to get upset and angry, so I opened up the wardrobe, and sure enough, those running shoes were in the exact place as we found them a few days earlier. Bang! In the corner facing the same way. My friend started saying sorry, and she actually picked up the shoes and put them on the bed in front of me. Another freaky thing was there was mud just above the soles of them, like there had been before we cleaned them. I can remember throwing them back into the wardrobe and never going in my sister's wardrobe again. I've recently told my sister all about this, and she was really intrigued by all of it. The only thing I can think of is that a ghost moved them, who was looking over me and didn't want me getting into trouble off of my family, as I've been told not to do something, but I went and did it anyways. Oh, I don't know. Sorry about my poor storytelling, but this is 100% true, and to be honest, it's the only paranormal experience I've ever had. I do have pictures of my mom's old house, if that does help, and also might be able to dig a picture of my sister, and those shoes in particular. I have a lot of old pictures from my childhood. Please, if you could, I am no expert on the paranormal. I don't come a paranormal-based background, but what I saw that day, I really can't explain. So maybe if you know this stuff, you could explain a bit of it for me? Shoes moving themselves. I'm new to this website, and have specially joined this site for my experience. While to cut to the mustard, I'm not really a big believer in religion or spirits, so this site is most appropriate for my experiences. Just recently, my running shoes have been moving around the house without anyone moving them. I only live with my mother, but she is away most of the time with work, and I have to tend to myself a lot. It's definitely not her. Why would she prank around anyways during something like this? This has happened multiple times anyways. It's only happened with my running shoes and trainers, those ones specifically, and no other objects around the house. I do collect shoes, mainly trainers and sneakers, and these are my oldest and favorite pair. The experiences I have had is most commonly, I leave these shoes downstairs in the hallway as I still wear them most, unlike my other shoes, where I leave them in my bedroom. The shoes seem to move places around the house, ending up in unusual places, such as the bathroom and utility room. Most commonly, though, they end up in my bedroom. Like I said, I don't believe this has anything to do with poltergeist activity, as it's only one object. Well, two objects, because they're both shoes, which move. I've been on Google Answers, I've been on Yahoo Answers, and queried about my experiences. And only one person explained telekinesis and psychokinesis. I believe that this is what is moving my shoes, but I am still not too sure. It happens at least once a month, if not more times than that. It's also just started to happen in the past year. If you can think of anything which may be causing this and how it could be caused specifically on a pair of shoes, please respond. Thank you, Tim. My shoes on top in a straight line. I have recently written about happenings in my home, and on 2 occasions now a funny thing has happened with my shoes. One day during the week of March 17th, my sister was over and we were watching a show on the paranormal, and the host was showing how to use a pendulum. He held a coin in his hand, and if it was an odd number, the pendulum moved left to right over his hand, and if it was an even number, it went to and fro. I got out mine and I tried it and it worked. He then showed how to use a dowsing rod, so I took my set out and was showing my sister how it worked. Well, shortly after that, she had to go home and I had to go get some sleep because I had to leave for work later that night. I work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. at a hospital. When we went to the front door, my shoes were in the middle of the hall, one on top of the other in a straight line. I usually keep these shoes under the kitchen table and put them on just before I go to work. The table itself is about 10 feet away from the hall. We were wondering as to how it happened, and my partner suggested that the dogs knocked the shoes into the hall when they were playing ball. I argued that the shoes would not be in a neat straight line and on top of each other if that were the case, but rather scattered about if that were the case. Well, he said he was just stating that it could be how the shoes came into the hall, and that our ghosts don't always cause things to happen. On Easter Sunday, we were telling the story to the family, and once again we argued, in a joking manner, that it was the ghost or the dogs. That night, while I was on my computer, I had a paranormal show playing on the TV. Shortly after that, I got into bed to watch a show with S, and decided we wanted popcorn, so I got up and put some in the microwave. Now, when I go to the kitchen and walk back, I pass the hallway, and there was nothing unusual at the time. A few minutes into the show, however, we realized that it was a repeat, so we turned on the TV and S decided to go get some sleep. I, being restless, decided to get up and get a book from the living room. I got up, and when I passed the hallway, there were my shoes again. In a straight line. On top of each other, but closer. Closer to the front door. I called S, my significant other, to the hallway, and then he agreed that the dog hadn't been playing ball. And also, in the 10 minutes that had passed since I made popcorn, it had to have happened, and he and the dog were both in the bedroom, so they couldn't have done it. One other thing about the shoes. When I picked them up, I noticed just how tight they were shoved together. They weren't just placed on top of each other, but toe into heel and jammed in tight. So, now every time I pass the hallway, I look to see if my shoes are there, but so far it hasn't happened. This week. One shoe on top of the other. For the past 2 mornings in a row, I have discovered one of my shoes right on top of the other, toes pointing the same direction next to my bed. The first time it happened, I thought maybe I'd accidentally left them that way, although I just kick them off when I go to bed, and it has never happened before. The first morning it happened, my husband had a nightmare. He was screaming in his sleep, so I woke him up. He said that he had a dream someone or something was at the front door. So he went to the door only to find himself standing in the front hall at the double front doors of our old Victorian house. That house was haunted. We had to tell the woman who bought it about the ghost at the real estate closing. We sold it 14 years ago and hadn't experienced anything paranormal ever since. The first night, I wore my sneakers and found they placed precisely on top of each other, toes pointing away from the bed towards a south-facing window. Last night, I wore a different pair of shoes, but they were one on top of the other, neatly, toes pointing towards a window and away from the bed when I woke up this morning. The moonlight was shining directly on them because I woke up when it was still dark. I was curious about what had happened to our old house after the dream in which my husband had. So I did some online research and discovered that it had recently been sold again, about a month ago. We never actually saw a ghost in that house, but we heard footsteps and experienced strange happenings, such as lights turning off and on in random patterns, pictures being taken down from the wall and placed neatly, leaning against the wall on the floor. One of our third floor tenants there claimed to have heard a male voice calling her name at night when she knew she was alone in the apartment. We heard an explosion from the basement once and ran down there only to find nothing amiss. When the mailman will put mail through the mail slot in the front door instead of delivering to our post office box, the chain on the inside of the front door would rattle. I'd go into the hall to make sure the outside door wasn't open, and I'd find the mail on the floor. Is it possible that ghost, after 14 years, has found where we live now and paid us a visit? The thing with the shoes never happened at the old house, though. The glowing shoes hovering on the stairs. Good evening, your ghost stories. It's 8:30 p.m. on Monday, and I just saw a pair of white shoes as if somebody was walking down the stairs. This is the second time I've ever saw this. There was no body, only what looked like a pair of shoes. My grandma is in the living room, and I'm in the game room. Not a soul was upstairs. My grandfather passed away 6 years ago. Last I remember, he never wore white dress shoes. A few months ago, I saw the exact same shoes at the last few steps, walk down and then vanish. Whatever this is, it never starts at the top of the stairs. It's as if the alien spirit is watching over me or was standing there. It only takes a few steps and then it's gone. I did not feel scared. A feeling of peace entered my body. Today was the second time this has happened. I went from watching TV to my head randomly turning towards the stairs. That's exactly what happened last night. I have a great feeling that we are being visited by the higher beings, aliens, and the supernatural. I guess we will truly never know why they visit and why we see them. And until you have seen them with your own set of eyes. It may be hard to believe, but because the truth will be exposed. Email me if you'd like to speak about it. You have any interest in this. Have a great day.